TitleMatchNetwork.com.
But you were in Smoky Mountain for a little bit first, was it?
Yeah, I was in Smoky Mountain while I was still in the Marine Corps. I was that's when I started doing some independent shows, just maybe once, twice a month, in North Carolina when I was stationed there in the latter years of my Marine Corps term. I started doing some independent stuff. That's where I met Gorgeous George, not the girl, but the guy who later became Maestro. Robbie Eagle, Robbie Kellum, I think is his real name, and I met him. I had just gotten married. My wife left me. It didn't last long. It was a military wedding where we were just both scared, so we got married, and it didn't last long. And then I started going over to his house daily, and we built a ring. And we basically taught each other how to wrestle right there in that ring in Jacksonville, North Carolina. And we started doing little independent shows, Wilmington, some near Charlotte and Greensboro and stuff, just local independent shows. And that's how I started, kind of broke in. And while I was still doing that, Cornette was running, and my family pretty much all was up there. Mm-hmm. So anytime I had a chance, they would use me in some way, shape, or form. And my greatest time in Smoky Mountain was when I beat my father for a loser leave town match. I was dressed up. Me and Larry Santos were dressed up as the Black Ninjas, and we did the old switch and hit him with a gimmick, and he lost the loser leave town match. He came back as the commissioner, though. It was all good, but that's the most thing I remember about Smoky Mountain.
What was Cornette like at the time?
He was hell on wheels, man. I'll tell you what, back there in that dressing room, he had low budget production, as low budget as he could get. If you know Jim, he's going to get that bottom line, low budget. And so anytime anything technical messed up, he was about to have a stroke, cussing everybody without thinking who he's cussing. You know what I mean? A lot of people would go up after it and say, "You realize you just told me to f off," and I'm not having that. But he would go. Oh, he was nuts. But he had some good ideas, and he dealt with my father a lot. He trusted my dad. He liked my dad since when he was young, and so him and my father kind of got together on a lot of things and had some good. Good angles and good stuff. It was just, I didn't, now it was, the other wrestlings had started growing and growing and growing. And it's just, I don't know that there was space for another little territory, especially a territory with a low budget where they can't branch out and can't have the great production on a television show. And you know what I mean? It's hard competition to deal with.
How helpful were your brothers at the time?
They were a lot more helpful when I was young, when we were all together, you know what I mean? Because once they started wrestling, Steve was in Japan, and Scott would be in Germany, and Brad would be in Atlanta, and I lived in Pensacola, or I was in the Marine Corps. So we were really away from each other for a long time. But I'll tell you, Brad probably taught me in '93 when I went to WCW. I was just doing jobs with Brad. He was about the most helpful guy I could ever imagine, and he wasn't instructive as if he would tell me what to do or tell me. If he saw me doing something wrong, he would correct it and say, "Do this next time." But just watching him, just standing on the apron and watching him work, man. I know he's my brother, but if you disagree, something's wrong with you, because he was one of the best and most underrated wrestlers. I mean, in the past 15, 20 years, and. He's got such a great personality. If they could bring that out when that red light comes on, man, I'm telling you, the Rock. You'd be saying, "Rock who?" That's no lie. So yeah, I learned a lot from Brad just by watching from the apron, man. Oh, growing up in a wrestling family, to tell you the truth, was great to me, because my father, Bob Armstrong, I didn't get to see him a whole lot. Wrestling takes you away, and sometimes the only time I got to see him was on TV. And it just so happens that he was a good worker. Not a lot, he's not worldly known, but in the Southeast, he was pretty popular in his day, which was many days ago. But my brothers then followed in his footsteps and started doing professional wrestling. So you can bet your bottom dollar, I was the biggest fan there was. I was out there every time it came on, looking just a chance to see my brothers on television or my father on television, and I knew from the get-go I was going to be taping and watching myself on television one day.
What was it like having Bob Armstrong as a father?
Oh, it was great. I mean, as a man, he's somebody especially to look up to. He's very honest. I've never heard anybody talk bad about him. and if they did talk bad about him, they didn't do it to my face or his. and that's kind of a reputation that follows our family too. We just don't take a whole lot of crap from nobody, and that's probably why I'm sitting here in this hotel room and not off in California somewhere with Billy as my partner.
Were you close to your brothers? And was there any one in particular?
Yeah, I was very close to all. My family were Southern born, Southern bred, and we're taught family is all you got, and everybody else is just strangers. I stole that from from like a Wyatt Earp movie, but it's just true, very true to life. So yeah, I was very close to all of my brothers, and my oldest brother Scott, who did the referee, he was a referee in WCW right before they sold out to Vince. He was my oldest brother, and he looked out for me a lot. And he really he bought me a car when I was 15. He was already into wrestling and doing pretty well for himself. So he always looked out for me a little. I hate to say I love one of my brothers more than I love the others, because that's not true. But you asked me about looking up to one of them, and Scott, the oldest, was definitely the one to look up to. He's wise, and I guess it comes with years. Wisdom comes with age. But he's definitely wise about money and about a lot of things. I always looked up to him about, not just in the wrestling aspect or in being a big brother, but he was a wise businessman as well. So he's the one I looked up to the most.
Was there any particular age or any particular point that you decided to become a wrestler? I know you said from watching your dad, but
yeah, no, I knew I wanted to be one from way back. The only problem was I was a skinny kid. I looked like a tree with arms, and it was ludicrous. I played football, played all sports, basketball, baseball, football growing up, and I knew I wanted to be a wrestler, but here it came time to graduate high school, and I was 6'4" and weighed 165 pounds. And you don't see a lot of professional wrestlers out there on Vince's show anyway. On some of these independent shows, you might catch one or two, but at that weight, you're not going to make it professional wrestling. So I joined the Marine Corps, and during that stint, everybody knows I don't want to beat a dead horse. I went to Desert Storm, hoopla, blah blah, whoop-de-doo. But anyway, I put on weight while I was in there, and grew up a little bit while I was in there, and got out in '93 and started doing them JOBs for WCW with my brother Brad, who was in there pretty good at the time. He had a good spot. They never used him properly, or never used him hardly at all, but he had a good spot. He was making decent money, and he didn't have to work much. So in our business, that's called a good spot.
What was Desert Storm like?
It was like a war. No, it was a lot. I'll tell you the truth, it was a character builder. You really did. From where I was at, 8th and I Marine Barracks, we were purely ceremonial. Marines, we marched at the Pentagon, at the White House when dignitaries flew in. We were Camp David security in case they had to evacuate the president. We had a couple of different little tasks at hand, but we never thought we'd go to war. So they sent us to war, and we were really thought we were doomed then. We were used to pressing our uniforms and not pressing them against the sand, the low crawl, So we didn't think we were going to go at all. And then when we actually went, they gave us classes on landmines and on stuff like that. And we just figured, well, we're not going to make it home alive. This guy's dropped so many landmines. Everywhere you step, you're going to step on a different landmine. So it was pretty scary. The scariest times of my life. But then again, you find out how much guts you got. When you're really scared, you find out just how much guts you got. And it's not really that somebody's suffering somebody else. It's just that if they have that strong will to survive, then they're tough enough. You know what I mean?
Watch thousands of exclusive shoot interviews right now on TitleMatchNetwork.com.